They said humanity destroyed itself. Every child in the galaxy learned the same story. Earth had been a violent little world. Its people fought endless wars, poisoned their own oceans, split the atom before they learned wisdom, and vanished long before they could become a true galactic civilization. The lesson ended the same way every time. Remember the Terrans. Intelligence without unity leads only to extinction. No one questioned it. History belonged to the Galactic Council, and the Galactic Council never lied. At least, that was what I believed. My name is Lyra Sen, Chief Archivist of the Council Exploration Corps. My duty was simple. I traveled to forgotten worlds, recovered ancient records, and preserved the history of civilizations that time had nearly erased. I loved history because history never changed. People changed, governments changed, empires rose and fell, but the past remained the past, or so I thought. Everything changed on the day we crossed the edge of known space. Our vessel, the Eternal Dawn, had been assigned to investigate a region no ship had entered for centuries. The stars there behaved strangely. Entire systems had gone dark without explanation. Long-range probes disappeared. Even military fleets refused to patrol that sector. Most believed it was cursed. Scientists called it impossible. Our captain called it another routine survey. The first week passed without incident. Then we found the signal. It was weak, broken, older than anything our computers should have been able to decode. The communications officer frowned as strange symbols filled the screen. I've never seen this language before. I walked over. The moment I saw the characters, my heart skipped. I recognized them, not because they existed in any official archive, because I had seen them hidden inside classified fragments that should never have existed. Ancient human writing. I immediately ordered the computer to begin reconstruction. The bridge fell silent, piece by piece. The damaged transmission rebuilt itself. Static filled the speakers. Then a tired but steady human voice echoed through the ship. This is Terran Expeditionary Fleet 7. Flagship Resolute. Requesting immediate contact with Earth Command. Mission Omega remains active. Enemy contained. Supplies critical. Awaiting further orders. Silence, complete silence. The captain slowly turned toward me. Archivist. I couldn't answer. The message continued. If anyone receives this transmission, please respond. The recording ended. No one moved. Finally, the communications officer laughed nervously. Someone has a strange sense of humor. I shook my head. No, what do you mean? That recording is authentic. The captain frowned. Impossible. So is its age. The computer finished its analysis. Estimated transmission age, 3,142 years. Every face on the bridge turned pale. The captain immediately contacted Galactic Command. Our report was transmitted with the highest security clearance. The reply arrived less than 2 minutes later. It contained only 9 words. Leave the sector immediately. Do not investigate. Erase all collected data. No explanation. No questions. No request for additional scans. Only fear. That frightened me more than the signal itself. Governments do not hide myths, they hide truths. Before anyone could delete the files, I secretly copied the entire transmission onto my personal archive. An hour later, the Eternal Dawn officially changed course. According to our flight log, we were returning home. We weren't. Commander Ryan Holt quietly prepared a reconnaissance shuttle. Engineer Solon bypassed the navigation locks without informing the captain. The 3 of us slipped away into the darkness, following the ancient signal toward the edge of the dead sector. For nearly 12 hours, nothing happened. No stars. No planets. Only endless silence. Then our sensors detected something. At first we thought it was an asteroid field. Then the scanners zoomed in. Ships, thousands of them. No, millions. Broken alien vessels drifted through space like forgotten ghosts. Some were larger than continents, others had been split clean in half. Every wreck carried battle scars. Unlike anything I had ever seen, this had not been a battle. It had been annihilation. Commander Holt whispered, "Who could have done this?" Before anyone answered, Solon pointed through the cockpit window. Look, far beyond the graveyard floated something enormous, a shape so vast it blocked the stars behind it. Our shuttle slowly approached. The closer we came, the larger it became. 20 kilometers. 40. 60. 80. It wasn't a station. It wasn't a moon. It was a warship. An impossible human warship. Its gray armor was scarred by ancient battles, yet it remained intact. A blue emblem decorated Its hull, a single planet surrounded by 7 stars, Earth. Then every light aboard the giant vessel came alive, one after another, like an entire city waking from a 1,000-year sleep. Our engines suddenly shut down, every control froze, life support remained active, nothing else. Someone else now controlled our shuttle. A calm voice echoed through our speakers. It spoke flawless English. Unknown vessel detected. A brief pause followed. Then came the sentence that changed the history of the galaxy forever. This is the Terran Expeditionary Flagship Resolute. State your allegiance and explain why Earth has remained silent for 3,142 years. The silence inside our shuttle became heavier than gravity. Commander Holt's fingers hovered over the controls, but every system remained locked. Engineer Solon desperately tried to regain access, only for every command to be rejected before he even touched the console. They're inside our computers, he whispered. No, Holt replied, staring at the massive warship outside. They own our computers, the voice returned, calm and patient. This is your second request for identification. I swallowed and leaned toward the microphone. My name is Lyra Seneral. I am Chief Archivist of the Galactic Council Exploration Course. A pause. Then the voice asked a question none of us expected. What is the Galactic Council? I blinked. It governs nearly the entire known galaxy. Silence. Several seconds passed before the answer came. There was no Galactic Council when Fleet 7 departed Earth. Another voice joined the transmission, older, calmer, carrying the weight of countless battles. Bring them aboard. Our shuttle shook gently. A blue beam surrounded the entire craft. The stars vanished. A heartbeat later, we were no longer floating in space. We were inside the hangar of the greatest ship humanity had ever built. The doors opened. With a hiss, rows of soldiers stood waiting. Every one of them wore dark gray combat armor marked with the blue Earth insignia. Their rifles looked centuries beyond anything the Council possessed, yet it wasn't there. Weapons that caught my attention. It was there. Discipline. Not a single soldier moved. Not a single helmet turned toward us. They stood like statues, awaiting orders. A tall officer stepped forward. His hair was silver. His uniform was immaculate. Despite its age, his piercing blue eyes studied each of us with quiet intensity. I am Grand Admiral Nathaniel Graves. He extended his hand. It took me a second to realize what he was doing. I reached out. Our hands met. For the first time in over 3,000 years, a human and a citizen of the modern galaxy shook hands. Welcome aboard the Resolute, he said. His voice carried neither pride nor anger, only exhaustion. He led us through corridors that seemed endless. Every hallway was spotless. Every system functioned perfectly. Thousands of officers worked at their stations with absolute precision. No one looked like survivors from a forgotten fleet. They looked like a navy that had never stopped fighting. Eventually we entered the bridge. It was unlike anything I had imagined. A massive holographic map filled the center of the room. Hundreds of stars glowed across it. Most of them were marked in red. I recognized none of the names. Graves stopped before the display. I asked one question. He looked directly at me. What happened to Earth? I took a deep breath. The galaxy believes humanity became extinct. The bridge fell silent. No one interrupted. No one reacted. I continued. Every official record says Earth destroyed itself before achieving interstellar civilization. The first Dominion barrage struck. The shields held. Then the railguns fired. The darkness lit up like a second sunrise. Entire lines of Dominion warships simply ceased to exist. For the first time since the battle began, the alien advance stopped. Not because they wanted to, because humanity had planted its feet, and humanity refused to move. The battlefield fell into a rhythm only the Terrans seemed to understand. Every human ship moved with impossible precision. When one vessel took damage, another replaced it before the enemy could exploit the gap. When a Dominion cruiser charged the line, 3 railgun batteries destroyed it before it reached firing range. There was no panic. No hesitation. Only discipline refined through 3,000 years of war. Marshal Voss watched in stunned silence from her flagship. Her tactical officers could barely keep up. Human ships are predicting every Dominion maneuver. They're intercepting attacks before they're launched. How? No one had an answer. A transmission arrived from the Resolute. Admiral Graves appeared on the screen. Marshal Voss. She looked at him with a mixture of pride and shame. We misjudged you. Graves didn't reply. He simply said, Withdraw your damaged ships behind our line. For the first time in Galactic Council history, the Council obeyed a human command. Thousands of battered Council vessels retreated behind the Terran formation. Medical ships immediately began rescuing survivors. Human recovery craft pulled alien escape pods from the wreckage alongside their own. Commander Holt watched in disbelief. They're rescuing everyone. I nodded. They don't even ask which side they're on. Suddenly, the bridge lights dimmed. A warning echoed across every Terran ship. Gravitational anomaly detected. The tactical display flickered. At the center of the Dominion fleet, space itself began to collapse inward. One enemy ship emerged. Then another. No. It wasn't another ship. It was a fortress, a black structure nearly 500 kilometers long. Its surface shifted like living shadow. Even the Dominion vessels moved aside to make way for it. An uneasy silence spread across the bridge. For the first time since we'd arrived, I saw concern in Admiral Graves' eyes. So, it survived. An officer turned toward him. Sir, that's impossible. I know. Commander Holt looked between them. What is it? Graves answered quietly, the Harbinger. The flagship of the Dominion Emperor. It should have been destroyed 2,000 years ago. The massive fortress rotated slowly. A crimson beam erupted from its center. It crossed millions of kilometers in an instant. One Terran battleship disappeared. Not exploded. Not broken apart. It simply vanished. Every atom erased. Silence filled the bridge. Then another beam fired. Another battleship vanished. The Dominion fleet surged forward behind its flagship. Their morale had returned. The human defensive line began to bend for the first time. An officer shouted, shield sectors collapsing, enemy breakthrough on the eastern flank, casualties rising. Graves stood perfectly still, then he looked toward a sealed section of the bridge. Prepare the vanguard. Every officer nearby froze. One of them spoke carefully. Sir, if we activate the vanguard, there will be no turning back. I know, you gave your word to Earth. Graves smiled sadly. I gave my word to humanity. He pressed his hand against a biometric panel, deep within. The resolute, ancient systems that had remained dormant for 3,000 years finally awakened. A voice echoed through every Terran ship. Authorization confirmed. Project Vanguard is now active. Across the battlefield, the stars themselves began to change. The darkness between the stars rippled. At first, I thought my eyes were failing. Then every sensor aboard the Resolute erupted with readings so extreme they overflowed the displays. Space itself was bending, not around a planet, not around a star, around the Terran fleet. Across every human ship, sections of their hulls unfolded like mechanical wings. Rings of blue light surrounded each vessel, growing brighter with every passing second. The Dominion fleet slowed. Even they didn't understand what they were witnessing. Marshal Voss stared at the tactical display. What are they doing? No one answered. Admiral Graves spoke quietly. 3,000 years ago, Earth realized we could never win a war by fighting the enemy's strength, so we changed the battlefield. The Resolute shuddered. A column of blue light shot upward from its spine, disappearing into the heavens. One after another, every Terran flagship did the same. Millions of beams crossed the void. Then they connected. A web of light spread across the entire star system. The stars vanished. In their place appeared thousands of glowing geometric patterns stretching across space itself. Engineer Solon whispered, "That's not a weapon." Graves nodded. "No, it's a gate." Before anyone could ask another question, the gates opened, one after another. Hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. From each gateway emerged fresh Terran warships. Brand new, untouched by battle, shipyards, carriers, medical vessels, logistics fleets, entire mobile factories. For 3,000 years, Fleet 7 hadn't merely survived. It had built an empire in the darkness beyond the galaxy. The tactical officer's voice shook. Reinforcement count. He stopped to verify the number, then looked up. Over 9 million additional Terran vessels entering the battlefield. Silence. Even the Dominion advance slowed. For the first time since the war began, the enemy hesitated. Graves looked toward the tactical display. Transmit to every Terran commander. A communications officer nodded. Channel open. Graves' voice echoed across millions of ships. Today is not about revenge. It is not about reclaiming old glory. It is about ensuring that no child in this galaxy will ever have their history stolen again. He paused. Advance. The order spread like thunder. 11 million Terran warships accelerated together. The formation was flawless. The Dominion fired first. A storm of crimson energy flooded space. Human shields absorbed the first wave. The second. The third. Then the Terran fleet answered. Railguns thundered. Missiles streaked across the void. Energy lances carved through enemy formations. Entire Dominion battle groups vanished in blinding flashes of blue light. The line that had held for 3,000 years finally moved forward. Humanity was no longer defending. Humanity was coming home. The Dominion fought like a cornered beast. Wave after wave of black warships hurled themselves at the advancing Terran line, caring nothing for their own losses. Entire formations disappeared under relentless railgun fire. Still they came. The void between the fleets became a storm of fire, shattered metal, and collapsing stars. On the bridge of the Resolute, casualty reports arrived every few seconds. Third carrier group has broken through. Enemy flagship destroyed. 7th Defense Wing has lost 42 ships. Medical convoys recovering survivors. Admiral Graves read every report without expression. Every Terran life mattered. Every loss was remembered. Suddenly the tactical display flashed crimson. The Harbinger is charging its primary weapon. Every officer looked toward the giant Dominion fortress. A sphere of black energy formed at its center. It grew larger and larger until it eclipsed the surrounding ships. My instinct screamed. Whatever that weapon was. It wasn't meant to destroy fleets. It was meant to erase civilizations. The tactical officer shouted. Impact estimate, 90 seconds. Marshal Voss's terrified voice came over the communications channel. Our shields can't stop that. Graves nodded calmly. I know. He turned to his operations chief. Prepare the Aegis. The officer hesitated. Sir, the Aegis core has never been activated. It was built for this moment. The officer saluted. Yes, Admiral. Deep inside the Resolute, another ancient system awakened. Power readings climbed beyond anything our sensors could measure. Outside, the flagship's armor began to glow with brilliant blue light. The glow spread to nearby battleships, then to every Terran vessel. Within seconds, the entire fleet shone like a galaxy of blue stars. The network is complete, the operations chief announced. Graves took a slow breath, raised the shield. Every Terran ship released a column of blue energy. Millions of beams merged into a single barrier stretching across the entire battlefield. It wasn't protecting one ship. It wasn't protecting one fleet. It was protecting everyone. The Harbinger fired. A beam of absolute darkness struck the blue barrier. The universe seemed to stop. For several endless seconds, neither side moved. Then cracks appeared across the shield. 1, 10, thousands. The bridge shook violently. Warning alarm screamed. Shield integrity dropping. 90%. 83. 75. The Harbinger poured more power into the beam. Terran reactors overloaded across the fleet. Several destroyers exploded as their crews sacrificed themselves to keep the shield alive. N01 abandoned their position. N01 retreated. Graves watched the casualties rise. Then he quietly removed the command insignia from his uniform. He handed it to the young officer standing beside him. If the shield fails, you will command the fleet. The officer's eyes widened. Sir, Graves smiled. The mission has always been bigger than one man. Without another word, he turned and walked toward the emergency lift leading deep into the heart of the Resolute. I stared after him. Where is he going? The operations chief answered softly. To do what every commander hopes they'll never have to do. He is going to ignite the heart of Earth. The doors of the emergency lift closed behind Admiral Graves. N01 on the bridge tried to stop him. Every officer knew where he was going. Every officer understood what it meant. Commander Holt looked at the operations chief. What is the heart of Earth? The chief hesitated, then he answered. It is the first stellar core humanity ever built. My breath caught. You built a star? He nodded. Not a real one. A controlled artificial singularity capable of powering an entire civilization. Engineer Solon stared in disbelief. That's impossible. It was, until humanity needed it. The bridge shook again. The blue shield continued to crack beneath the Harbinger's relentless assault. Shield integrity, 61%. 58, multiple sectors failing. Outside the viewport, Terran ships were burning. Yet none withdrew. Each damaged vessel moved forward, using its own hull to reinforce the weakening barrier. One captain after another transmitted the same message. For Earth, another voice answered. For humanity, then another. For everyone. Soon millions of voices echoed across the fleet. Not as a battle cry. As a promise. Deep inside the Resolute, Graves reached the final chamber. It was unlike anything I had imagined. At its center floated a sphere no larger than a human heart. Inside it burned a tiny blue sun. The heart of Earth. Thousands of engineers surrounded the chamber. One elderly scientist looked at the admiral with sorrow. If we overload the core, Graves nodded. I know, the Resolute won't survive. Neither will anyone still aboard. Silence filled the chamber. Finally, the scientist asked the question none of them wanted to hear. Are you giving the order? Graves looked at the tiny artificial star. For a long moment, he simply watched it. Then he smiled. I promised the children of Earth they would have a tomorrow. He placed his hand on the activation console. I intend to keep that promise. On the bridge, every display suddenly changed. A single message appeared across every Terran ship. Command authorization confirmed. Heart of Earth overload Initi Ated. The operations chief lowered his head. It's begun. Outside, the Resolute became brighter than any star in the system. Blue light spread across its hull in brilliant waves. Even the Dominion paused. The Harbinger stopped firing. Its commanders sensed something they had never encountered before. Fear. The artificial star inside the Resolute reached critical output. Power surged through the Aegis network. The fractured shield stabilized. Then it grew stronger. The cracks vanished. The blue barrier expanded across the battlefield, pushing the Dominion beam backward for the first time. Marshal Voss watched in stunned silence. What is happening? Commander Holt whispered the answer. Humanity just decided this battle ends today. The heart of Earth continued to awaken, and the stars themselves began to tremble. The light from the Resolute outshone every star in the system. It was no longer a warship. It had become the heart of the battlefield. Power flowed through the Aegis network into every Terran vessel. Damaged shields regenerated. Weapons recharged instantly. Engines pushed beyond their design limits. The fleet moved as one. The Dominion attacked with everything it had. Thousands of black beams struck the expanding barrier. None broke through. For the first time in 3,000 years, the enemy was losing ground. On the bridge, the tactical officer raised his voice. The Dominion front line is collapsing. Enemy casualties exceeding 100,000 ships. Another report followed. The Harbinger is retreating. A quiet murmur spread across the bridge. The Harbinger, retreating, according to every Terran officer, that had never happened before. The Dominion Emperor had never retreated. Not once. Graves' voice came over the ship-wide speakers from deep within the core chamber. Do not let it escape. The entire Terran fleet accelerated. Millions of warships surged forward like a tidal wave of blue light. The Harbinger turned, opening a massive hyperspace rift behind it. It intended to flee. Graves spoke one final command. All flagships, fire together. Across the battlefield, every Terran flagship aligned on the same target. Thousands of spinal rail cannons charged. Their combined energy lit the void brighter than a newborn sun. Fire. A single wall of blue light crossed the darkness. The Harbinger tried to enter hyperspace. It was too late. The Terran barrage struck its center. For one endless second, nothing happened. Then cracks spread across the fortress. Blue light burst through its black armor. The impossible flagship that had terrorized galaxies for millennia began to tear itself apart. The Dominion Emperor transmitted one final message. You were supposed to disappear. Graves answered calmly. Humanity doesn't disappear. We endure. The Harbinger exploded. A shockwave rolled across the battlefield, swallowing thousands of Dominion ships. Without their flagship, the enemy fleet fell into chaos. Some tried to flee. Others continued fighting without coordination. The outcome was no longer in doubt. One by one, Dominion vessels surrendered or were destroyed. Hours later, the firing stopped. Silence returned to the stars. For the first time in over 3,000 years, the war was over. Cheers erupted across every Terran ship. Council crews embraced human sailors. Rescue vessels crossed the battlefield, saving anyone they could find, regardless of species. Then the celebrations ended. A quiet voice echoed through the Resolute. Core containment failure. Evacuation impossible. The bridge fell silent. Commander Holt slowly looked toward the operations chief, Admiral Graves. The chief lowered his head. The heart of Earth kept its promise, but it consumed the ship that carried it. No transmission came from the Admiral. No farewell, only silence. The Resolute drifted peacefully among the stars, its mission finally complete. And no one spoke. Across the battlefield, millions of ships remained perfectly still, not because they had received an order, because every captain understood. The Resolute was dying. Marshal Voss removed her cap. One by one, every council officer did the same. Then every Terran ship transmitted the same message across the fleet. Honor the flagship. The formation changed. Millions of warships turned toward the Resolute, weapons lowered, engines dimmed. For 5 silent minutes, the entire galaxy stood still. Inside the core chamber, Admiral Nathaniel Graves looked at the fading blue light of the heart of Earth. The tiny artificial star was collapsing. Its mission was complete. A young engineer approached him. Sir, we still have one escape pod. Graves smiled gently. Give it to someone else. There is no one else left. The engineer's eyes filled with tears. Then let me stay. Graves placed a hand on his shoulder. You've already done your duty. The engineer slowly saluted. So have you, sir. When the last engineer left, Graves was alone. He looked at an old photograph secured beside the control console. A blue world, green forests, white clouds, children laughing beneath an open sky. Earth, he smiled. We made it. Outside, the hull of the Resolute began to glow. Not with violent energy, but with a warm blue light, the same color as the oceans of the world it had left behind more than 3,000 years earlier. The final transmission spread across every frequency in the galaxy. It was Admiral Graves. His voice was calm, steady, proud. To whoever hears this, if humanity is remembered, be kind. If humanity is forgotten, be better. We were never the strongest. We were never the oldest. We simply refused to abandon those who needed us. Our watch is over. The stars are yours now. The transmission ended. A heartbeat later, the Resolute dissolved into millions of blue lights. No explosion. No fire. Its atoms scattered gently across space like glowing stars returning to the universe. Silence followed. No one moved. No one dared speak. Marshal Voss whispered the only words that mattered. We were wrong. She turned toward her officers. Effective immediately. Restore every human archive. Restore every monument. Restore every name. No more lies. Across the galaxy, ancient vaults were opened. Hidden records were released. Statues buried beneath forgotten cities saw sunlight again. Children who had been taught that humanity was a myth learned the truth for the first time. The species they had mocked, the civilization they had erased, had spent 3,000 years protecting them from an enemy they never even knew existed. Months later, the Galactic Council gathered in its grand chamber. At its center stood a new monument. Not of conquest, not of victory, a single human hand reaching toward the stars. Beneath it were engraved the final words of Admiral Nathaniel Graves: humanity doesn't ask who deserves saving. We save them anyway. And from that day forward, no child in the galaxy ever again grew up believing humanity had disappeared. Instead, they learned the truth. When the darkness came, humanity had stood between the galaxy and extinction. Years passed. The scars of the Dominion were slowly faded, but the memory never did. Every year, on the anniversary of the Battle of the Silent Frontier, the entire galaxy observed 1 hour of silence, not for victory, for gratitude. The Galactic Council changed forever. Species that had spent centuries competing for power now shared technology, food, medicine, and knowledge, not because treaties demanded it, because humanity had shown them that survival meant nothing if it was not shared. At the center of the rebuilt council capital stood the Hall of Remembrance. Its largest chamber held no throne. No monument to a king, only a simple hologram of the Resolute. Visitors from every corner of the galaxy came to see it. Children would ask the same question: did one ship really save us all? The guides always gave the same answer: no, it was the people aboard her. As for me, I resigned from the exploration corps. History was no longer something I studied. It was something I had witnessed. I spent the rest of my life writing the true story of humanity, every battle, every sacrifice, every name we could recover. It took decades. When the final volume was completed, I placed one copy in the Hall of Remembrance. Another was sent to every school in the galaxy. For the first time in more than 3,000 years, the truth belonged to everyone. Sometimes, late at night, I would look toward the edge of the galaxy where Fleet 7 had made its final stand. People often asked me the same question: do you think Admiral Graves is truly gone? I never answered immediately, because I remembered something Engineer Solon had discovered while examining the remains of the battlefield. The Resolute had disappeared, but one thing had not. The heart of Earth, the artificial star, had vanished without leaving a trace. It had not exploded. It had not been destroyed. It had simply gone somewhere. No sensor in the galaxy ever found it. No scientist ever explained it. Some believed it had collapsed into another universe. Others claimed it had become a real star, hidden somewhere among the billions already shining in the night. Whenever I was asked what I believed, I always smiled. I think humanity left one final light in the darkness, so that no one would ever be afraid of the stars again. And on quiet nights, when the sky was clear, sailors crossing the outer frontier still reported seeing a single blue star, where no star should exist. Whenever lost ships followed its light, they always found their way home. The galaxy called it a miracle. The Terrans who survived called it something else. They called the last watch, and as long as that blue star continued to shine, humanity's mission would never truly end. The end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe to HFY Stellar Vault, and let us know in the comments, what would you have done if you had discovered the Lost Terran Fleet? Until next time, keep looking to the stars.